So this is a part 4 of my journey of writing my next book, and at the moment I'm actually in beautiful Vancouver Island. Let me just turn the phone around so you can see where I am. And the reason I'm here, it's part of research for my next book, which is all about evolution and biodiversity and extinction. And I've come here to try and see the coastal wolves. So the Vancouver coastal wolves are a really unusual subspecies of wolf that get nearly all of their food from the ocean. So about 50% of the diet of the pack that lives around here comes from sea otters, but they'll also eat washed up dead whales, dead seals, dead sea lions, and they'll even scavenge for mollusks and what have you on the tidal flats when the tide goes out. It's been exciting. We've been able to hike around. We've been going into the old-growth forest. We've been out in the boat looking for these wolves. We've had 3 really excellent sightings. Managed to take some nice photos. But the reason I'm here is they're classified as a subspecies of wolf, and most wolves get most of their nutrition from things like deer and elk, and in some places moose, and they'll kill the occasional bison in places like Yellowstone, where I work. But I wanted to come here because these wolves are different. They tend to forage much more solitary rather than living in packs. Although they do den together, they are still pack living, but they go off on their own and forage often for food. So they show very different behaviors. And there's some genetic differences between them and other subspecies of wolves. And so they're early on an ecological journey that could potentially over time lead to increased genetic divergence, and who knows, potentially in hundreds of thousands of years, speciation. So they're adaptive. Wolves are incredibly adaptable animals. They can live pretty much anywhere. And I wanted to come and observe these wolves as part of the research for the next book, so I can write about them in the chapter about divergence as different animals adapt, different populations adapt to different ecological conditions. So these various ecological opportunities, and the wolves are very good at exploiting these. And canids in general, so dog species, they're very successful at the moment. You end up with things like Ethiopian wolves that live on the plains of Ethiopia, right the way through to the wolves that we're getting over here, the coastal wolves, with grey wolves and other subspecies of wolves in between. They can generally hybridize. They can even hybridize with things like coyotes, but they're adapting to all sorts of different environments. So it's the beginning of genetic divergence, evolutionary divergence, and potentially speciation. And so I wanted to write about that, and because I work on wolves in Yellowstone and know them quite well, I decided to come over here and do a little bit of research. So I've come out, I'm working, we're being looked after incredibly well by the world expert on sea wolves, a guy called Tom McPherson. I'm here with with various other friends, including the guy who led the reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone. So we have another wolf expert here. And we sit around the table in the evening after having had a day out in the field, or days out in the field, looking for these wolves, photographing them. So hopefully there'll be some pictures in the book. But also discussing the evolution of wolves, their behavior, how they differ from one another. And it's been successful. It's been well worth it. It's been fun. And I've got quite a lot to write for the next book. But at the moment, I'm being bitten to death by mosquitoes, so I'm about to head back inside.